Good morning. Breakfast with the Broker every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. We have a very special guest, someone I've known for a very long time, Miss Susan Horne. How are you?
Good morning, I'm great.
Good. So we have this great location that we're on at Colonial Club with this beautiful view in back of us. And, I wanted to talk a little bit about, you have obviously a very interesting story, and there's been adversity, just like with all successful people. They've had to overcome obstacles, and certainly you've had quite a few shares of those. Tell us a little bit about your background and your story of how you made it from 20 some odd years ago to here.
Sure. So I'm actually a native Floridian, born in Fort Lauderdale, and in my younger years I had quite a horrible life, and by the grace of God I came to believe in the Lord in 1988, and then in 1990 I had a mentor who actually lived here in Colonial Club, and I had nowhere to live, and she let me stay with her here 2 days. And her dad also had a place here, and he made me filet mignon and mud pie my first night, and all I had was the clothes I was wearing and $37, and he gave me $100. And the next day we went to Marshall's and I got a bathing suit, and we went into the pool on the Intercoastal. And this was February 12th, 1990, the first time I ever came here, Abraham Lincoln's birthday. And when I was in the pool, I said to the Lord when a sailboat went by, it was so beautiful, I said, I hope someday I have a home like this. And I never dreamed that I'd end up with the best home here. And so I stayed with her 2 nights. I went into a halfway home, and I stayed there for 30 days. I got my first job downtown Delray at a candy store, and then worked at Huber's because the candy store closed. And then 3 months later I ended up getting a wonderful job that I actually prayed for a specific amount of money with Dr. Hughes, who's a periodontist in Delray. And I worked for him for 5 years. I also was the secretary for the Palm Beach County Dental Association at night. And I had a weekend job so I could buy a car, because I had, nothing, working for a builder out in the estates in Boynton. And then after a time I decided I wanted to do more of running a doctor's office. So I worked for Dr. Lelaine, a general dentist, for a year and a half. Then I worked for an endodontist, running his office and assistant. And when I was there, he dated a realtor, and I would, observe her, and I thought, if she can do it, I know I can do it.
So you obviously had talking about coming to Colonial Club, with $37 in your pocket, religious clothes on your back, and making from, an introduction into this place to actually owning a place through real estate. So really, real estate has really done an amazing job, and obviously you've done an amazing job with real estate. So when we talk about your story, and I always think it's just fascinating because you give back a lot, and we'll get into your charity work and stuff like that. But it's about connecting communities, especially nowadays. We look at the value of a realtor, and that value of the realtor is building those relationships and creating those communities. Talk about how once you purchased your place in Colonial Club, you really took off with a lot of marketing, but more so connecting the people into this community.
Yeah, so to begin with, when I first started being a realtor, I did farming, and that's basically planting a seed and hoping it grows and then getting crop from it. And so I did it when I lived in Delray Gardens Estates, and I did very well selling there, and I helped first-time buyers primarily there, because I knew how much it meant to me when I bought my first home, and to have a home, period, whether I owned it or not. And then when I moved over here, this is now a 55 and older community, So I began farming in here, and I also did back in 2014 a drone video. People weren't really doing those, they were just starting to, and it just came out beautiful. It's still on YouTube, and it's one of the most popular videos that I've done. And then I also created within the community a Facebook group where I post any new restaurants, any events, any sales, any for sale, sold. And then when hurricanes happen, I also keep people posted on what's going on with the community, that it's safe, because most of the people here are snowbirds. This is primarily second homes here. And so I did that. And then other things I've done within the community is right now we're replacing the seawall, but before we replaced it, the land was falling in over behind where Rebecca is, and I went to the city to get them to rebuild it, and it was quite a challenge, and they weren't going to do it. They wanted to get attorneys all involved. So what I did, I began looking at prior work that was done over there, and I looked at the permitting that was given to the Army Corps of Engineer and to the city, and I found that there was a mistake. And the city, and when I let the city know, they immediately said they're going to take care of it, and they did. And another thing was there's actually a sewer line that goes all across the water here. And several years ago, I used to fish a great deal here, and I caught a pipe, and I ended up with something on my arm, and I ended up so sick, and it ended up being typhoid fever, and it was a miracle I even lived through it. And so I went to the city on St. Patrick's Day because the sewer line busted. It was 30 years old, nobody was checking it. 50,000 gallons of sewage was in there, and people were still swimming and fishing and eating the fish. So on St. Patrick's Day, I went to the city, and the city manager thought I came there because I wanted them to pay my medical bills. But what I wanted them to do was let the community know, the whole city, because all this goes right out to the ocean, that it busted, and to change it, to fix it. And they did. That in itself was a miracle, because there's other groups that's all they do is go after different cities all throughout Florida, trying to get them to make changes. And the city did. They completely put in a whole new system in there.
So, when you're living in Colonial Club and you're living in communities and you're connecting communities, now you're also an advocate to that community. And, what better testament to your advocacy as to, going and making sure that, it's safe, secure, and obviously healthy to be in your community. And that's why I think it's it's amazing from your story, from through all the adversity that you've had in your past, to come to this point and then be an advocate for this community that you were introduced 30 years ago or so.
Right.
It is amazing. So I know we connect communities. We do, obviously you're successful in real estate, but you also do a lot of charity work. I know I was introduced, and I know you go back and forth, but with your missions and things that you do outside. But when you brought the incarcerated parents charity, where basically the kids, we were helping the kids who had parents that were incarcerated to no fault of their own. We were helping them, with gifts and donations during the holiday times. What other charities do you do, and give back? And do you think it's important as a realtor to do those things?
Well, I began doing my first ministry I ever did was in 1990, and I began it at Trinity International Assemblies of God, and it was a homeless ministry. And we would go out and feed and clothe homeless people, and we'd go to John Prince Park, and we actually got several of the men there to go out to Faith Farm and turn their lives over. One became a minister, and they were reunited with their family. And other ministries I've done, I began in 1990 and did it well over 20 years, is jail and prison ministry. And I would drive to Fort Pierce on Monday night, do ministry in the jail there, and come back and go into other correctional institutes, including Gun Club Road, and do ministry there. And then I also implemented back at St. John's Missionary Baptist Church in Boynton. It's one of the largest black churches in Palm Beach County, and there was a fabulous pastor there who was a dear friend of mine, Lance Cheney, that really encouraged me and had so much faith in me, more than I had in myself. And he would point out how blessed I've been in my business, how God has blessed me. And I ended up starting their first jail ministry. The church is over 100 years old, and they never really had one that went into the facilities. And so now they do, they still do. Anita Bird leads it up. And I also implemented through prison ministry, Chuck Colson's prison ministry, Angel Tree. And that was really awesome. And Dave let the office collect toys. We ended up with hundreds of toys that I got another church that never even went into this area in Boynton that helped deliver all the gifts. And what was awesome, the gifts aren't given to the kids saying they're from us. They're given saying they're from the parent. It's to help build a relationship so that, there's some forgiveness and they feel loved. And so that was really great. And then another thing that I do, I've done it and still do it, is I sponsor a child in Haiti for 15 years now. And I actually went there after the earthquake. I found her by a miracle because her village was completely destroyed. And it was really quite an adventure because they had no electricity, no water. I was there 10 days and the ground was still shaking, but what a blessing. And she's now almost 18 and she's so smart and she wants to become a doctor, and I think that's amazing in itself.
So how did you really find the sponsorship of Haiti? How did you find, what kind of propelled you into getting into that?
Well, I was single, still am. I was married before, and I felt like I needed to give any love that I have to something other than someone who doesn't really respect it.
Fair enough.
So I got a child, and I just really felt led to do that, and I'm so glad I did, because that also led me when in the mall in Boynton they had the killings on Christmas Eve, and that was televised all over the world, and the people involved were Haitian, and there was a lot of gang violence going on there, and I decided to reach out to all parties involved on my own. I was going to St. John's then, and the pastor knew I was doing this, and it was really a miracle how I ended up meeting the family members of the young man who were killed, and I brought his cousin, his brother, and his sister to St. John's, and they all gave their life to the Lord and got baptized there. And I know that it helped stop any kind of violence that they might have been feeling, to get involved in.
Great. And so, we talk about, giving back, and as you just said, your causes and stuff. How do you think it's important to give back as far as being in the real estate community and being a professional, to give back to the community and having causes that are dear to you?
Well, I think it's important to always, whoever you are, to give back with more motives than money. And I'm basically now working with people who are elderly, and elderly a lot of times can be taken advantage of. And so I really try to help them, especially if they need even legal advice, because I've used Steve Searle. I've recommended several clients to him to help with estates, wills, to make sure all their documents are proper, even their title works right, so when the day does come and they move on, that the family members don't have to go through a great deal of hassle in order to get the estate settled.
Sure. And we've known each other for, I used to be in a title company well before I was in real estate, and so we've been working together 20 plus years, and I always thought it was an amazing I mean, obviously, I think you're an amazing person, but I always thought that, you know, everything that you do it with passion, and everything that you do it with, you know, your cause. And I love what you just said as far as, you know, you can't really think about money or business, you know, because that clouds the motive. And, you know, in order to really be a professional real estate or realtor, you need to give back to the community that has blessed you and has, you know, that you've loved, you know, going forward. So we very much appreciate you being here and telling your story and really just connecting relationships. You know, that's why I think that, you know, the Colonial Club that you've kind of built, you know, essentially been an advocate. You know, you're helping the community, you know, by sending videos with you know, second homeowners and vacation homes, and then obviously you have a lot of charity work. So you've overcome a lot of adversity, and certainly we appreciate you coming on and telling the story, because I think it's a huge value to realtors that are watching and or consumers.
I wanted to just share a couple other things. Is that when I got in real estate, I never went in it to make a lot of money. I wanted to get out of the medical field. I was still married at the time, and I was going to be content just making 20 grand a year, and I well exceeded that. My first year, I got Rookie of the Year from Palm Beach County, and I got a national designation, my GRI, which takes some realtors 5 years just to complete. And later on, every year after, I've been a realtor now 21 years, and I've been with REMAX 20. And every year I've gotten some type of award. And even back when our market tanked, a lot of people got out of the business, and I wasn't quite sure what I should do. And I stayed in it, and I began building my online presence. People weren't doing websites or blogging yet, so I began doing it. You had classes on it with Active Rain. I bought tons of domain names to reach the European market, and it worked. I reached a lady in Prague, and she bought a place here sight unseen. She referred several people to me, and the worst time in our economy, she invited me to Europe, and I got to see Prague, Austria, Germany, Italy, Venice. Amazing, never dreamed it would happen, and it was just from having faith and hard work and believing. And really that's what it is, because every deal's different, and you go through stressful deals, you think you're going to about lose your mind, and then as you're in the business, you learn how to deal with it, how you have to put everything in its proper place so that it doesn't completely control you. And my faith is one thing that's absolutely kept me going. I have everything, I believe, because of God. He's been so good and faithful to me through all the different adversaries I've gone through, and even personal ones. The struggle's been real, but the Lord always seems to make a way for me.
Awesome. Susan, I really do appreciate you coming on and giving us this beautiful location right on the Intercoastal. What's that?
Great morning.
Yeah, it is. And Rebecca likes it.
I'm going to come here every
beaming.
morning.
You see why I work here all the
Yeah.
time?
Absolutely. No wonder why we don't see you in the office as much anymore. Just kidding. We only see you on rainy days. So thank you again.
Thank you.
So every morning, every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m., we do Breakfast with the Broker. I hope you guys can tune in next week. We have Ben Schachter, the president of Signature Companies. We're going to go over all his companies that he goes and what we're not.
Oh no, I'm just shaking my head because there's so many.
So Ben Schachter's going to come on the show. We're going to talk about his companies and the services and support that he offers to his agents, and how he kind of really took I think he's been doing this about 13, 14 years, how he really took a company that started very small and made it a very big company. So we certainly look forward to it. We appreciate Ben Schachter, and that's about it. Yes?
If you want to give back like Susan does, Habitat.
Oh, Rebecca reminds me
Good
of Habitat.
segue, right?
Yes, Build Day is coming up March 29th.
Yeah.
It's from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
You could do morning or afternoon.
What's that?
You could do morning shift or afternoon
you
shift.
can do morning or afternoon shift.
Yeah.
And the great thing about this is that, and it's Rebecca's kind of vision was to bring in realtors from all other companies. A lot of times we have branded events, whether it's REMAX, Keller Williams, Century 21, Realogy, all these other different companies, and they have their own, version of Habitat for Humanity build days. This, we wanted to get as many agents from as many different companies to come together to show the solidarity and collaboration within our industry, that we're not just competing against everything, and we're not fighting and arguing and all of that. We're helping bring people together and bring everyone together and collaborate. So again, March 29th, Rebecca will put a link down below to get your tickets, and we look forward to seeing you guys. Thanks again,
Thank
Susan.
you.
Appreciate it.